do we need, so there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Do we need a motion and a second to approve that portion of the, or can we carry that under what we've just done?
We can, the motion in the second is to approve items for B, C, D,
Okay.
and E 1 and 2 right now,
Okay,
barring any other objections to
Okay.
any of those items.
all right. So everybody's clear on that. Now the consent agenda that we're going to approve, the portion of the consent agenda that we're going to approve is everything on the consent agenda except for item 4A. There's a motion and a second on that. All those in favor?
Are there any objections?
Are there any objections?
No,
Fallen by itself.
no objections, then it's approved by unanimous consent.
Got it. Okay, so no objections, we're approved. Okay, so now we go on to item 5,
4A.
4A. Okay, so now we're back on item 4A.
So 4A is adoption of agenda.
So we need a motion and a second to take up item 4A.
Okay, is there a motion and a second to take up item 4A on the consent agenda? There's a motion by Supervisor Wilson. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Wilson.
I'll second if there's no second.
We got a second. We had a first Woodman, and then we had a second by Wilson.
We're good.
Is everybody clear on what we just did? Okay. And so we still carry that motion, right? We still carry that, right? Yes. Right,
Then sweat it out.
This is a motion to discuss it.
right.
Yes. Now he's
So all those in favor
going to talk about it.
of that, say aye.
Then, wait,
Oh.
are we adopting the agenda with the change that was requested, or what are we doing now?
No, so the motion in the second takes the agenda as it was proposed, and that's the motion to approve the agenda as it was proposed. If there's somebody would like to amend the agenda, that amendment needs to be made, and it needs to be seconded, and then it needs to be voted on.
As proposed with E1 and E2 as we see it in the agenda right now,
Correct.
in that order.
So E1 and E2, so 4E1 and 4E2 have been adopted by unanimous consent. The question that was previously raised, that could be raised again, is whether 11A or B should come first in the consideration of the agenda.
Okay, so we're adopting it with 11A and 11B, A and B in that order. Is that what we're
Correct. That is the motion, to approve the agenda as proposed.
doing? Okay.
So Supervisor Zorro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now would be the time that I'd like to move that we swap those two as previously discussed with 11A and 11B. Just reverse the order.
Okay,
11A and B would become B and A.
okay, it's motion by Zorro and second by Snyder that we swap 11A and 11A and 11B around. So it's been motioned and second. So all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
A,
Whoa, okay, let's do this then. Let's do a roll call on that, please. So the motion on the floor is to switch around items 11A and 11B. I'm voting in favor would, an affirmative would mean you want to switch it around. Voting against it naturally would be leave it the way it is. And everyone vote, please.
You got it. No.
Yes, 10. Wait. Yes, 10. No, 14. 5 absent.
Okay, so it remains the way it is on the agenda.
So, Mr. Chair, you now need to take a vote on adoption of the agenda as it was proposed in its totality.
This is just the amendment.
Right. Okay, so now we would take a motion on the agenda that we just,
Well, there's a motion pending, you just need to take a vote.
right, all in favor of approving Can you repeat that? When we just, because
Yeah, so
I don't, and the reason I'm taking my time is because I don't want anybody to be confused when we vote, let alone me. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page when we vote. So that's why I want to walk it through.
So
Okay?
the amendment failed, so the initial motion to approve the agenda as proposed is still operative. So you need to vote on whether to approve this agenda or not,
With the way that the agenda is currently
the way that
posted.
it currently posted.
Okay. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
It passes by majority. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
It took 10 minutes and it should have taken 5 seconds.
Item 5.
Next item, public hearing. No public hearing this evening. Item 6, citizen participation, communications, and announcements. When I call your name, please step forward to the podium. Please state your name and address. You will be given 2 minutes to speak. Our first speaker is Dan DeFore.
Thank you very much. My name's Dan DeFore. My address is 4451 Red Oak Drive, Janesville. I am in Russ's district. I learned that tonight. First off, I just want to give a special thank you to the supervisors, all supervisors, for your willingness to become an active participant in Rock County government. And for your valuable time you set aside to do what you do as citizens. We do appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm here to speak very briefly on 2 related topics. They both have to do with the new Law Enforcement Services Jail project. My first topic is a question and a suggestion. From a citizen transparency, acceptability, and accountability perspective, would it have made more sense to get the citizens involved earlier in the process by having, let's say, a referendum on the $96 million project versus approving the project at the board level alone? My understanding is this is the largest public construction project, or close to it at least, in the history of Rock County, and one which will have a meaningful impact on citizens of Rock County's future taxes. It is not uncommon for school districts to have referendums for these types of large capital expenditure projects. Why was that not done here? Even if the answer is a procedural one, wouldn't it have been better to create greater citizen understanding and acceptance upfront versus potential confusion and angst after the fact? Of course, now this is water under the bridge, but for future large projects such as this, I mentioned this tonight. My second topic is to see if I can gain a better understanding of how the bid process works. Perhaps there are good explanations and answers to my questions. When I look at the bid packet number 3, which will be voted on tonight, I see a number of sections in the bid packet where there are only a single bidder. One of these single bid items, most of the single bid items were awarded to J.P. Cullen for a total of $23 million and a single bid to another separate supplier. I see that J.P. Cullen is acting as the construction manager, and perhaps these line items were negotiated under a separate general services type contract. Even if that's the case, would it not be better to individually request quotes from multiple bidders on these common services like concrete, masonry, and so forth? Put another way, from a fiscal responsibility perspective, shouldn't we have 2 or more bidders for these services that we're voting on tonight? And if not, why not? Perhaps this will be discussed during the debate this evening. If so, it will be appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Sally Horton.
Hello, thank you. My name is Sally Horton. My address is 721 Hyatt Street here in Janesville. And first of all, the prior speaker, Mr. DeFore, thank you, because pretty much everything you said I agree with, and it's the same thing. I don't have as much detail or as much knowledge. But I just want to say that I'm a retired nurse. I retired from the VA to take care of my disabled veteran husband. So yes, obviously, we are on a fixed income. I can't spend a dime without careful consideration and comparison. I can tell you where you can find the best buy on nearly everything. Now, I expect my public servants, all of you, and everybody in every other line of government to have the same care and consideration when you are spending my limited resources, which is what you do. I'm very concerned about all the over-budget bids, especially since they appear to be coming, if my understanding is correct, largely from one contractor, who was also the only bidder, apparently, or the only acceptable bidder. And this is all from, and various components of the construction was the only bidder. Now, there may be very good reasons why they were the only bidders. There may be very good reasons for the overages. We've all had increased expenses. We all know that. But my question would be, where is the explanation for that? Is it someplace where I can see it, where I can understand it? I've never found the Rock County Board website to be very user-friendly. I don't claim to be very techy, but I think that could be done better so that everybody could find the information. If you are spending $96 million of, well, our money, I can't certainly say it's my money, shouldn't we have a link someplace? How about something simple on that website? Can't figure out what department or what committee I should click on. Can't you just have something that says jail? And could you give us updates, and could it be plain language? In other words, can you translate from what is now on there to something that I can understand? And under plain language, how about let's just have some language? Can we also find out, for example, how much of this building is actually going to be a jail as opposed to administrative offices, for example? It's being called a jail, but administrative offices are not a jail. I don't know if it makes a difference. I have no way to judge. And as the prior speaker said, shouldn't we be entitled to more input when you're spending $96 million of our money, something that we will be paying for years, if not decades? And what will this roll into? Now you have this nice new building, we need to hire many more people. What's going to be the next thing? Now, I heard that there were meetings that were held last year on these topics that people could have come to. I didn't hear about them. So maybe the real problem here isn't so much the bids, but rather communication between the Rock County Board and the people of Rock County of whom they were supposed to serve. I kind of got tired of trying. In the previous years, I tried to contact my then supervisor, it's not the same guy now, and I never got the courtesy of a response. Phone call, email, letters, never a response. And other people reported the same thing. That's not acceptable. It's simply bad manners. I don't care who you are. Sorry. So, again, maybe you just need to work on communication, and then you won't have these problems. Thank you.
Next speaker is Craig Keller.
Hello, my name is Craig Keller. I live at 319 South Gilbert Street in Footville. Biggest reason I kind of come tonight, I wanted to introduce myself to some of the new members on the board. I'm currently running for the position of Rock County Sheriff. Again, I was going to kind of address a little bit with the $96 million jail thing. I've had a lot of people come to me very upset about this because they didn't know anything about it. And you know, when I worked at the sheriff's department, I knew there was talks about it. I knew what was going on. I retired. I kind of lost touch with things. So I don't have a lot of knowledge for it. You know, I try to tell people, you know, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I will see what I can find out, try and get into it. Again, I think like what Sally and the others have said, the communication issue, I think, is a big thing. I think that's been a big issue across the country in general. And that's something I hope to kind of bring back, and I'll tell you, I'm guilty of it as well. I'm not always the best about jumping forward either, you know, so I'm gonna take some of the onus on not having information too, because, you know, as a citizen, I could be coming to board meetings and finding things out myself. And I'm gonna start trying to do that and become more active and more involved. But in the same sense, we vote on people to put them in those offices, trusting that they're gonna do their best to represent us. And I guess that's all I'm asking. Maybe in the future, we put a little more information out, give people the knowledge and the information that they're looking for. I'll tell you, working there, there's no doubt, the jail, the offices, the jail expansion that's going on, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's not necessary, you know, because it is, and unfortunately, it does get to be very expensive. But again, I have to agree with some of the others. I think communication is the key, but I think that communication has to go both ways. And I think that process is being started right now. And I think that's very important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I got to say.
Thank you.
So we did not have any other speakers signed up to speak this evening?
Item 7, please.
Excuse me?
We're not done.
Oh.
There were no written comments submitted. Usually at this time, Rich will ask if anyone else wants to speak.
Does anyone else want to speak?
I am sorry.
Supervisor Herbert, that's okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I was still kind of new of jumping in. I just wanted to make a small announcement and possibly a small request. I'm going to be gone all next week for a family vacation that we've had planned since the beginning of the year. And I also was very interested in when the finance and next ad hoc meeting is. I haven't seen it come out, and I know there's going to be one soon, and I'm just hoping that those people that are involved with that could possibly put that off until after August 7th, because I would really like to attend those meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak at this time? Supervisor Mawini.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize all the 4-H kids for the projects that they put forth this year and thank them for representing Rock County in such a positive light.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple announcemements. First of all, something that we've been thinking about how to get in front of you for some time, but we've been busy with other things, so we've not done it. But just a reminder and announcement about the capital improvement plan, which is posted on the county's website. Every year we do a multi-year capital improvement plan, which departments submit, and we lay out potential projects that the county may be looking to do over a multiple-year time horizon going forward. That does not translate exactly into what might come through in the budget, but it is sort of a plan that we do every year to give you some insight into that. So we've not really had an opportunity to bring that in and talk about it from the board, but it is out on the county's website. So if you go out to the county's website under departments, under county administrator, you'll find the capital improvement plan, or the KIP sometimes as you hear referred to, will be out there, and there's lots of information and analysis in there about capital projects that you may or may not at some point in the future end up seeing in the budget. So please feel free to take a look at that. And if you have any questions about that, please just let me know. Strategic planning update. So a couple updates about our strategic planning process. So on your desks, you have a poster about the resident survey that it went out on the website just today. And so we've got some information that you may see. Press release went out. There's something you may hear on WCLO. In addition, we're trying to get department heads and other community organizations to send that out to as many of our residents as possible to complete that survey. Hopefully, that would be an opportunity to get some feedback from our residents about what they want the county to do. And there's a section on there about communication. So that is timely. That information will be used and brought back to you when the county board meets to have its retreat on the strategic plan. So we heard back the results of the survey that the county board was asked to do. So for those that responded, the majority chose Saturday, September 10th as the date for that retreat. So that is the date we're planning on. So please, if you are at all are able, please hold that date. Likely that will be an all-day type of affair, starting early in the morning, say around 8:30 or 9, ending later afternoon. We'd intend to bring in lunch as well. So location to be determined, but please hold September 10th, if at all possible, for that retreat for the county's strategic plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item 7.
Item 7, nominations, appointments, and confirmations. We have already taken care of those. Item 8, recognition of county employees or others. 8A, recognizing David Reif.
Is there, oh, go ahead.
If I butchered the name, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is there a first and a second to recognize Dave? He's not unable to be here tonight, but if I'm understanding, he's been here for 43 years. We have Supervisor Herman and Supervisor Creary. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, and we'll make sure that he gets his recognition award. Item 9.
Item 9, introduction of new resolutions or ordinances by supervisors for referral to appropriate committee.
This time, is there any supervisor have any resolutions or referrals they would like to bring forward at this time? And then as you drop them off when you return your seat, we'll ask you to give a little brief description, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm submitting a resolution to have Rock County submit an expression of interest to the Federal Railroad Administration to consider some passenger train corridors that go between Rock County and Milwaukee, between Rock County and Chicago, between Rock County and Green Bay, and between Rock County and Minneapolis. The reason I'm suggesting this is that there was an article in the the Counties Association magazine. It was written by Mr. Mark Magliori. He's a public relations manager of Amtrak Affairs and Corporation Communications. In this article, Mr. Magliari mentions that the bipartisan infrastructure law passed recently includes $17 billion in capital grants that will be awarded to the Federal Railroad Administration for new or improved Amtrak service outside the Northeast. And it also includes 6 years of additional funding. I want to read a little part of the release from the Federal Railroad Administration. It's by the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. He said, Americans deserve what people in many other countries currently benefit from, a world-class rail system that allows you to get where you need to go quickly and affordably, while reducing traffic and pollution on our roads. In launching the Corridor Identification and Development Program, which was made possible thanks to President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, we are taking a major step to transform America's passenger rail network and connect our smallest towns and our biggest cities with great train service. I'm a big proponent of passenger trains. I know Rock County in the past, many years ago, has had passenger trains. I think it's now, if we're going to have it revive again, now is the time to do it. And we need to be proactive. It doesn't cost the county anything to submit this statement of inquiry. It needs to be done, however, by September 30th of this year. So it is timely. It needs to be done quickly. I think the cities of Madison, Superior, and Eau Claire have already done this. I think we should be on board with this, and I think rather than us spending billions more on highways and polluting our air, I think we ought to get a little smarter like Europe is and rely more on rail. So that is my resolution. I think it's a no cost, it's federal money, and it would be a big benefit, in my opinion, to the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce new resolutions or ordinances at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10.
Item 10, reports. We have no reports this evening. Item 11, new business. 11A, supplementary appropriations and budget changes. A1, awarding the contract for the renovation of the law library, probate vault, and amending the 2022 facilities management budget.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this item? Motion by Mo Winnie, and sorry, and then a second by Wilson. Any questions, comments, discussion at this time? Sure. And before we start the question, Supervisor Zorl, I have you down, but if we can get Brent to come up and do a presentation first.
Yes, so this resolution is actually approving, we're taking two of the rooms, the spaces that's in the courthouse that used to be the former law library on 4th floor, that no longer is housing books. And then we've got down on 3rd floor is the probate vault, which those records were digitized and now created available space. Due to the courts, with their hearings, they've been having to, as the court commissioners, having to go to different conference rooms, trying to keep up with the court systems. What we've done is we actually created a plan and a design to turn them into hearing rooms. The resolution before you was also required a budget amendment. So when I first started this project, we were in 2020. I wasn't able to get the project done, and we carried the funds over. And when we started doing with the DA project is when we first started to look at the design and cost. And so the costs that I was using was still the 2020 costs. And what I did is just carried it forward, where I should have actually stepped back and said, oh, wait, let's rethink and let's relook at these numbers and add additional funds to the budget. I did not do that. You know, we went out for bid to see how the bids come in, and I did come in over budget, and that's where we requested to use additional prior year sales tax to offset the cost, because the need is still there.
Thank you. And Supervisor Zorl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brent, has Rock County ever worked with Glen Fern Construction before?
Yes.
Have we ever had any concerns or problems with them?
I have not.
How much cheaper was their bid versus the J.P. Cullen bid?
It was $151,070. So what Supervisor Zorro is referring to, in the bid summary, you'll notice there's three bidders that came in. There was Glen Fern, J.P. Cullen, and Corporate Contractors, Inc. Glen Fern's bid was rejected because he did not submit the bidder's qualification sheet, the addendum sheets, as well as the bid form. He was contacted, and he said that he was struggling a little bit with the demand star form, and he just hit the button and went pretty quick and didn't have all of his documents in order. I did speak with him on the phone. He did call me the day before the bid, actually like an hour before the bid, because he was still struggling with getting some HVAC numbers. But it was basically, his was rejected because of the missing information that's required in the bid.
Thank you, Brent. I spoke with Glen Fern Construction this morning as well, and he mentioned that when he submitted his bids in the past, he would usually hand deliver them. He had trouble using the demand star system like you mentioned. He said he got to the end getting ready to submit his extra documents, and then it said, oh, it's submitted. And he knew instantly that something was wrong because he wasn't really truly done submitting his bid. And as a result, he's being excluded from this project. Now, just because we have another bidder who's $151,000 more, this board has no obligation to accept that bid. My other concern is that, so aside from us paying $151,000 additional money, then we really don't have to. I mean, there's procedural ways around that. I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to do. But the other issue is this isn't in the budget. There's no money in the budget for it. I'm not in favor of amending the budget for it. The economy is now in a recession, and unlike in 2008, where you had prices falling, this recession, you have prices that maybe they're softening a little, but they're still elevated. I just don't think it's right for the taxpayers to ask to pay for something above and beyond what's in the budget. So at this point, I move to table this resolution indefinitely.
Okay, there is a motion to table indefinitely. Is there anyone in seconding that motion? Seeing none, then that motion dies for lack of a second, and we're back to the original motion. Supervisor Woodman.
Yeah, I just, I guess I question the value of the bid being so much higher than was expected. And we do have a bid that was lower on a technicality, so I don't see how I can vote for spending the extra money. Thank you.
Supervisor Towns.
Brent, thank you, Chairman. Just a little clarification. There is 500,000 in the budget. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So it was a budgeted item.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now it's about 80% higher than we thought it was. Not quite double, but getting
Yes.
close. Okay. And is there enough sales tax money to cover that?
Yes, at the time, you can see at the resolution, it shows the dollar amount that's there.
And that wasn't earmarked for anything else?
No,
It was just
four-
sitting, it
yep,
was just
there was
sitting
14
there
million there.
as a surplus? Okay. Okay, okay.
Yep.
And then, thank you, that answers my question, clarification, but I just would like to say one thing too. It just does look, when you look back at the history, and I think Mr. DeFore, if I say his name right, and Ms. Horton, had really legitimate statements for the board, because it does look like we aren't getting competitive bids. And I think that's a valid statement and a valid thing to recognize. And so, and I know that's not, you can't make people bid a project, I understand that totally, but somehow or another, we need to entice more people to bid some of these projects. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Herman.
I think mine is twofold because I do have a question about the excess sales tax as well. But I'm going to ask that question first because that's on my head. I know we had 4.5 million extra in sales tax. We've already started allocating that, and we have tried by email to find out exactly how much sales tax has not been allocated yet, and we still have not gotten a figure. So this board has already passed a couple other amendments to the bill or to the board, through the board, using excess sales tax. So I would really like to know exactly how much sales tax we do have that is not allocated for something.
I believe I emailed that to you a couple days ago. It is the 4.5 million. That is the unallocated amount.
So we had more than that prior to, how much did we start with then?
I
Because
think at
there's
the
just
end
been a
of,
lot going through the board that we've been using, so that's why I'm asking.
I can look it up, but I believe at 12/31/21, it was about 5.2. I can look up that exact figure. But that has been chipped away. And it now, the exact, well, rounded, unallocated amount is the 4.5 million.
Thank you. I did I read that wrong. I do appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
No problem.
Then my second portion goes back to Brent. I agree. I am really surprised that somebody has been disqualified because of a system that is new, or the demand star, that they couldn't get something in that we've used before. This is about our taxpayers' excess, their money, all of that, and $151,000 is a lot of extra money to spend when we have somebody else coming in a little lower. I know there's inflation. I know things have done that, but across the board, I feel like we're not getting enough bids, and we need to be accepting these bids or giving them an extra day or something to get the bid in if they're just missing a couple pieces when they've always been hand-delivered before. So, thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
And if I could just take a minute and respond.
Go ahead.
So the bid process, he still has the paper bid. You know, he did use the demand star. He was under the wire, you know what I mean, time-wise, for pulling everything together. And talk with all the contractors. They're all struggling to get bids from even their suppliers, their subs. You know, we're seeing it across the board. You know, I shared with the supervisor's oral too, roof bids. You know, when this new board came in, the first thing they did is approved 3 roof bids with 1 bidder. That's not typical. You know, we typically had 6 bidders, you know, on a roof project. We're very fortunate we're able to get our roof projects done in today's climate. We've got DPW roof done. We've got UW extension diversion roofs, stuff on order to get started. We got UROC's roof done, and the courthouse roofs, stuff is ordered and ready to start. Even the roofing material, they're struggling to get them done. So we are seeing it with the not just the supply chain as it is staffing, you know, and the subs to get this information. Much like Glenn Fern said, he was under, you know, within an hour before the bid that he was still struggling to get an HVAC price for that project for the law library. So the fact that he was kind of under the wire, that he used the demand star, and you know, he still had the opportunity, as he did a couple other projects for us and did a good job, but was able to get it on time. The integrity with the state statutes and the sealed bid process, sometimes when we have you know, when it's under the $25,000 threshold, we have that flexibility to say, okay, get your bid in here, and then once we have them all, we'll tally them. But in a sealed bid process, there's a stringent format that says, here's where the bids are due, here's where the addendum questions go out, here's where they're answered. You know, the full process is completely followed. And typically a technicality is rare that we're able to do that. But, you know, we've had bids that were late getting in. And we have people stand there waiting at the time of the bid just to witness the bids being opened. So you really can't start being that flexible to say, well, we're going to, you know, loosen the timeline, or we're going to let you submit your information now, because you have bidders that have already took the time and got all the information, got it on time, and got there. You're sending the wrong message to those bidders when you say, we're not going to take this because it's you know, this other person didn't get theirs in on time, so, and they're less than you. Well, they might be less because they maybe didn't get all the information they needed. So
I would piggyback on Brent too. Like, when we think about the bid process, it's easy to think about it in the context of this one project or this one thing, but it's really, really, really important, just like with the tax code, that we think about it as it's repeatable, not just in this one instance, but over the course of years. And if we start what looks like to some arbitrarily waiving certain requirements in one instance and not in others just because we might have gotten a lower price, we will get less bids. And we will not increase the amount of bids because our vendors won't have a belief in the integrity of our own rules and our system. And so it's really important systematically that when we do waive technicalities, which we have done on occasion, including for one bid package today, that there are very clear reasons and guidelines why that is a technicality that has nothing to do with the substantive portions of the bid, whereas a failure to submit the basic bid documentations is just simply part of the bid, and you have to do that to qualify to get the project.
Okay, Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm part of the Finance Committee, so we had a presentation on this project at the meeting. I want to make a couple things clear. A judge spoke about the need for this project. It's not some frivolous request by somebody that thought, boy, it'd be nice to have a new office. There are logistical reasons and safety reasons. I think Brent could reiterate that. Also, I questioned Brent, why did we exceed our budget on this? And his explanation, I'll let Brent speak for that, but I think his numbers were several years old. We all know how construction costs have gone. And also, there was some changes into the project, from what I understand. So I'd like Brent to elaborate on that. But the final thing I want to say is, in my experience in industry and that we have processes for a reason. And when we start deviating and we make exceptions and we do this and we do that, we're going to run into a lot of problems. I agree with our corporation counsel, I believe, said that sounds all well and good to make an exception for this, an exception for that, because it's to our benefit. But I can see our whole integrity of our bidding system being sabotaged by doing this. Brent, so can you elaborate a little bit on the need for the project and why you felt, why the bid came in higher than you anticipated? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Judge Kuglich is here, who spoke at Finance Committee, so it may be more appropriate to have the judge speak to the need.
Right, thank you.
Boy, this is like old times.
Welcome.
For most of you, at least half, don't know me. I'm Jeff Kuglich. For 10 years, I sat in Mr. Green's seat. I was corp counsel here before I became a judge, and this is actually my courtroom. So this is a pleasure to share it with County Board. I did speak at Finance today as it relates to the two building projects that we've got here. One right behind us here that's going to be in the old law library, and then one down in Probate. We need the hearing space. Right now, we are backlogged. We've got 4 commissioners and only 3 spots. And the one spot that the commissioner is using down in, the 3 spots are courtroom G, courtroom L, and the jury assembly room. And in courtroom L, it is an extremely confined space. There's only room for the commissioner and the 2 parties. There's no room for any witnesses or anything of nature, so they're stuck, any witnesses for any cases are stuck in the hallway outside, waiting for things to happen. It's also no way out for the judge or commissioner in there. It's locked in. If anything were to happen, there's no way out. And Commissioner Timmerman is the primary person in courtroom L right now. And she's hearing domestic abuse cases, she's hearing harassment cases, and other injunction matters. The potential is there. Fortunately, nothing's happened, but the potential is real. The courtroom G is used 100% by the family court commissioner. He's got calendar all day. So that leaves only courtroom L, which I talked about its limitation, and the jury assembly room. Right now, we've got 3 commissioners lobbying for space. With the backlog of criminal cases and things that we've gotten through the pandemic, and the timelines we're under to get these things done, they're being forced to share spaces. We're out of space. They're having to use conference rooms with Zoom when they can to be able to get cases done. And the issues are real. Also, the other issue that's come up with the JAR, it's the jury assembly room. Our juries are way up. And as I spoke to the committee tonight, I've got 2 juries. I've got a jury coming next week, and Judge McCrae has a jury on Monday. So commissioners are trying to use the Monday space for their hearings. We're going to be using them for the juries because we have to assemble our juries, and that's the room we're using. So for pretty much the entire morning next week, that room's going to be in use, and the commissioners can't use it. The spaces will alleviate the backlogs and help the commissioners be able to hold the hearings. And again, the safety concerns are real. And as far as the cost goes, obviously you guys are going to decide the costs. But I just want to assure you that the need for these hearing rooms is real. And I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions?
All right. Thank you, folks.
Supervisor Herman?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, for speaking. How large are the rooms going to be that you're redoing? Because I'm just wondering because of the amount they're using to change things. Like, what are they all adding or taking out?
Well, I mean, behind us here, and you can't really see it, but it used to be the law library, it used to be full of books. Well, everything's electronic now, and we've stopped the subscriptions, we don't need the books, so you've saved that money over the years for whatever the cost of the books were, and the cost there. But that's gonna be the bigger of the two hearing rooms right behind us here. There's also gonna be a little vestibule room for the commissioner or judge to use, so it'll be right behind this wall. There'll be a little room that's gonna have a table in it for the judge to make decisions, whatever. It'll provide me a changing room because my bailiff doesn't like me walking through the courthouse with my robe on as a security risk. But then the main courtroom, it'll be the bigger of the two courtrooms, and it's gonna have space again for the commissioner, the attorneys, the guardian ad litem, the witness stand, and there's gonna be I think there's gonna be like 2 rows of 6 chairs in the back. The probate office is going to be on the 3rd floor. It's in the probate vault right now. And Commissioner Timmerman, the probate registrar, has managed to eliminate a lot of the files that were back there, so we've got that additional space now. That's going to be a little bit more expensive, I believe, and Brent can talk a little bit more because it's a vault. There's steel walls, things of that nature. So even put doorways in are going to be a little more problematic. But that's going to be the smaller of the 2 rooms. And again, it's going to be a hearing room to be able to provide these additional hearings that are necessary under the timelines and the restrictions that we've got. As far as the dimensions and things like that, if you want to talk about that.
Yep. So the answer to your question on the budget, that's 100% on me, okay? So I had got numbers when we did the DA renovation. I had got numbers from the architects to do this because we were preliminarily working on this space. And that's when I had gotten the numbers. I had put it in the budget right away. It got approved. Our projects, if you see our project list, a sealed bid process takes about 2 months from start to finish. So we're usually at a pretty fast pace to keep the projects moving, to even get them done at the end of the year. And in this case, the project, we just weren't ready to bid it. We weren't ready to go. We worked through with the judges and the design team, so we worked through it extensively to make sure we get it right. So we weren't ready to go, and so I carried the funds over one more time, and I failed to go back and say, look, we need to raise that. And so I'm nervous as we go along, and I probably should have came to the board ahead of time saying, hey, this money's not enough, but I didn't, and figured I'll wait to see what the bids come in and hope we get closer. We do have $65,400 in contingency in there, and we hope we don't use that, so it won't nearly be as much. And much like I told Supervisor Zorro, value engineering, we can value, once a sealed bid is done and it's awarded to the lowest bidder, we can value engineer all we want, the same as, when there's change orders to increase the cost because you got to add this, we can go in there and say, look, we're over budget. Let's figure out ways that we can reduce it. I mean, we did that, even with the job center bathrooms. We started looking at it with, the flooring. We didn't use ceramic tile. We used epoxy flooring. There's different ways to value engineer that down and try to help. Some things you can't, but there are some things you can.
Supervisor Corey.
Thank you, Board Chair. Brent, you might have just answered this, but I just wanted to double check. What's the length of time from when a job is posted and made public to when you close that and decide who to bring before us as an acceptable?
2 months.
2 months.
2 months.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Our new purchasing manager has been able to get some of them. Simpler projects make it happen in a month and a half, but it's typically about 2 months.
So this contractor that Supervisor Zorro brought up, he had or any of the contractors, I suppose, this isn't my wheelhouse, so I'm asking questions. They have to meet with their subcontractors, price everything out. So they have 2 months to do that, correct?
Correct. Well, not a full 2 months. 2 months considered from the time that the bid goes out to when your bid is due in.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, in the case like the law library where it's general will do that. So we didn't split it up like we did the LES jail project. Then the general has to get he's got to get the electronics person to give them their price, the electricians, the HVAC people to get their prices. So yes, if they're vendors, and they typically work with vendors that they have success with. So, but if in other cases, they'll usually go with whoever shows up at the pre-bid walkthrough. They start sharing cards. The electricians will pass their card around, and so then sometimes they're waiting on responses from their subs.
Thank you.
Supervisor Peer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you, Brent, for all that you do and trying to juggle all this stuff around, all the variables that are there in the economy that we have today, and everybody's working with the problems that you're talking about, from initial subcontractors all the way through to you. It's difficult, but I agree with what was mentioned earlier. The rules are set there for a reason, best business practices. We all have to deal with the rules that are there. And if we make exceptions, why set up the rules in the first place? I think we really need to take care of this. Thank you, Judge Kuglich, for coming in here and stating very eloquently the needs that are certainly there. And I'd like to call the question, please.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to call the question. So calling the question, which means we would end the discussion and go right to the vote. This will be a roll call, so those at this time, shall we vote?
Supervisor Curry and Pennycook, I'm not showing votes on yours. Yes, 19, no 5, 5 absent.
Okay, so at this time, we would vote on item 11A1. All those in favor, this is going to be roll call. So we need a motion and a second to approve. Do we already have a motion and a second? We did. We already had a motion and second. Okay, I'm sorry. So at this time, we will vote on approving item 11A1 at this time.
Once our bids go out, we are obligated to accept the lowest responsible bid. Period.
17 yes, 7 no, 5 absent. I believe we needed 20 to pass.
That's correct.
So that motion did not pass. 11B1, please.
11B1, awarding contracts for the construction of the Law Enforcement Services, LES Jail, and bids all sections.
Right. First of all, can I get a motion and a motion for approval? Motion by Winters, a second by Stevens. Brent, please.
Yes, so this is bid packet number 3. We did have, which we advertised it as the all bid. Yet we did extend the bid date for the electrical. There was a lot of, for the addendum questions, there was a lot of questions they were still working on, and we felt it was advisable to pull that and extend. So with amendment number 3, we extended the bid date for the electrical, which was actually came in today. And we'll go to committee on the 9th, and then the board will be back here to the board, the electrical, on the 11th.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Supervisor Query.
I remember, thank you, Board Chair. Brent, I remember having a conversation in earlier county board meetings where we discussed where all of the jobs are posted. Can you go through that one more time so that you refresh my memory in how the jobs are posted in all the different spots?
Yes, so we posted on the county website. we're required by statute to post it in the local paper. We posted it on Demand Star, which goes through about 2,500 different vendors. And some of those that get those bids, you know, such as the U.S. Minorities Group, the Daily Reporter. And then we also put it through Pendar, which is all the subs, and that goes out to about 10,000 different subcontractors. It got posted there. And there was more within Demand Star, and I don't remember all of them right off the top of my head with the list, but we expanded it more than 100% with what we were doing prior, even when we were getting a lot of different bids.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions or comments? Supervisor Zorro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brent, I realize that when bidders submit a bid, after they win that bid, and they have to follow the specs, but after they win, they can provide some cost-saving changes. Has J.P. Cullen, with regards to bid number 3.03A, 3.05A, 3.07C, and 3.10A, have they provided any potential cost savings on those bids, similar to how they did at the project at 1717 Center Avenue at this time?
Okay, so we have not had those conversations yet. You know, so we've been collectively pulling the bids together. All the bids came in through purchasing, so we were working through that summary and that. We have not had those conversations. And I'll just kind of mention to the group, what he's referring to is J.P. Cullen did the DWRC, the Human Services Building, and they were the low bidder there. And when we were, before we even started, we did value engineering, and they actually credited us and gave us back $600,000 before we even started the project. You know, there's some things, I mean, we could look at concrete. I don't know how much value engineering you can do, but we can certainly be looking at all of those. And yes, we will be doing that as we're walking through the whole project. One of the things that I don't think has been too clear to the board, and I want to state, if you notice in the resolutions, we use the terminology guaranteed price, maximum pricing, and that's having a construction manager at risk. So prior to this, we didn't discuss it because it's too early for a construction manager to say, yes, I can guarantee you I can come in at this project cost. And now that we've got the base of the main of the bids in, now is when we lock in that maximum guaranteed price. So we will be we'll be locking that maximum guaranteed price, which says if we go over that, it's on the contractor, it's on the general contractor. If we go under it, then we get the savings. And obviously, the last thing I want to do is tell a contractor that, you got to eat that. So we'll do everything we can to keep it within budget. And if anything, we'd really like to be under budget. And so.
Thank you.
Also, you previously mentioned that J.P. Cullen knew it was unlikely that they are going to get bids on 3.07C, which is why they submitted a bid. How do you suppose they knew that it was unlikely that they weren't going to get another bid for the caulking, the 3.07C?
Yeah, so it was, and it should maybe be clear, it's not that it's unlikely. They were concerned about having a bid for the caulk. And then they submitted a bid on that. And some of that is based on, it's kind of like so we do the pre-bid walkthrough. We actually have a list of folks that went through the pre-bid walkthrough. And just based on that and based on questions that being asked in the addendum, they were nervous about whether we'd get a bid for caulk and did submit a bid for caulk.
Is it possible that J.P. Cullen also knew it was possible or perhaps not likely that there were not going to be other bidders on 3.03A, 3.05A, and 3.10A, and perhaps bid accordingly based on the idea that they thought maybe there wouldn't be another bidder?
No, and the reason I say no is we actually had some generals on the bidders list that came for the pre-bid walkthrough, so they had no idea that there was going to be who would be bid or who would not be bidding. And they all came in through a sealed bid to purchasing, the same as all the other ones that even had 6 bids, so nobody would have known. And some of their rates increases was based on, like even from when they did 911, they seen cost increases between the concrete, the steel, and the lumber.
When you have a project manager model as opposed to a general contractor model, are you aware of any evidence in our local area that under this project manager model, of any examples in the last 5 years where you have one large general contractor as project manager and then another large general contractor come in willing to bid and work under them on the same project?
I can check with Iowa County, used this model, and so did Waukesha County. They both went under they were actually both under Kramer Brothers.
Right. Are you aware of actually any competitive bids in those projects or any projects whatsoever in the last 5 years where you've had a general contractor work under another general contractor in a project manager model?
No, I did not check that.
Besides J.P. Cullen, what other large general contractors would theoretically be able to handle a project this size?
I have to be a little bit nervous, but there's some big ones I can say. You've got your Myrons, your Bolt, your C.G. Schmidt. There's a question on the sizes of them. I mean, Corporate Contractors, Inc., I think, could handle the concrete work as well. Yeah, you got your Myrons, your Bolt. Yeah, there were some of the larger firms.
Why didn't any of these other contractors submit a bid?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of factors in there when it comes to what projects they got going, and again, it's their subs and the labor force is how many extra large projects they can take on.
Did Rock County specifically reach out to any of these other contractors and ask them to submit bids?
No, we didn't.
What is the reason that Rock County did not do that?
I don't want to show favoritism, and I don't know all of the context for that either.
What are the specific reasons why J.P. Cullen is over budget on bid 3.03A, the concrete?
One of the things is that the concrete had gone up 13% just from 911 till we did the jail one, till they called in. I mean, when we did our budget values and our bid values, the budget values was estimating. So they had an estimating team that's just seeing what's happening out in the field, and they do their best to be as accurate as they can be.
The increase in concrete cost of 13%, when you compare what they bid versus what was in the budget, they're actually going up more than 13%. Do we know why they're going up much more than the 13% versus just concrete cost?
I didn't dig into that deep. I don't.
For bid 3.05A, miscellaneous structural steel, I know steel prices are up 9%, but their bid is well beyond 9% above budget. Do we know what the reason is for that?
No, other than I know that he had just the one steel supplier that responded to him on the steel prices.
For bid 3.10A, general trades, they're way over budget on that one. What is the reason they're over budget on that, on general trades?
I don't know.
I'm going to jump in here and make a statement here. I understand the line of questioning. However, I'm getting a little concerned about it because it seems to be deviating from what we're here to discuss, and it's more of borderline of why isn't other people bidding for this is something that staff cannot answer. So I think questions like that should be directed to the chair, and I can kind of direct them to staff to get back to us with on a later date with more information or something, but it just seems as though we're getting into the weeds of the whys and the why nots that maybe staff does not have the answers on, and listening to the staff reply to the last few set of questions that you did propose. That's what he was saying. I don't have that information. I don't know why somebody else didn't bid. Those are questions he can't answer, so I'm going to ask you that if we have questions, to try to get them as tightly related to the bid itself or the documents that we have received, probably stick to that as much as we can and not go off into the weeds. That's just my opinion. And we do have other supervisors that need to speak as well that have questions. So I'm going to ask that if you would ask, if you have a couple more questions to kind of follow up, that would be fine. But we do have other individuals that would like to speak also, and I want to be fair to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll wrap this up. The reason why I was asking those questions is because as I'm representing my constituents, if we're going to be overbid, especially in a situation where there's only a single bidder, I want to be able to go back to my constituents and be able to explain why we would have approved something with one bidder and not have all the information as to why we were overbid. So I think it was a good idea that we should get that information. So I would move to table this until we can get that information.
Can I respond to that too?
Sure.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, I do want to share Supervisor Zorro too, that when we say over budget, over bid, we use bid values. So we're checking the market, at the time when we're putting their sheets together, we're checking the market. So we're estimating where the costs are going to come in. Just as much as the bid, you could say the bid was high, you could say that the bid value, the estimate was too low. I mean, it can kind of go both ways. So that's why it's really hard to determine. Once we get in there, we can really start looking at our low bidders and start talking about bid value. The same as I indicated, we'll bring this in at 96.6 as approved. But at this point, right up until before we got electrical, we were about $2 million under what the estimated number was for these trades, these different areas. Electrical comes in higher, and now it's putting us in a different position. But again, we still got more of the project to do, and we just got to rail it in to keep it within our budget.
Based on that, I'd like to modify my motion to only move to table the bids where there was one bidder and we are over that estimate by more than $50,000.
So the form of that motion isn't really appropriate. So it's a resolution which articulates the bid packages that are being approved and assigned a contract to J.P. Cullen as construction manager to manage. So you could amend the resolution to eliminate certain bids, that would be fine, but you can't really table the consideration of particular bids.
Then I would move to table the entire resolution until we could send this to referendum and get approval from the voters.
Again, you can postpone to a date certain, you can postpone indefinitely, but you can't postpone with a condition precedent that would be like such as a referendum.
I'll move to postpone 6 months.
It's going to cost you another $100,000.
There's a motion, is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, dies for a lack of second. We go back to the original. Supervisor Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm disappointed in the chair trying to curtail questions from supervisors tonight related to single bids. Single bids is very germane to our $72 million project. That would help the supervisors decide whether or not to vote yes or no on the entire project. Are there good explanations to bring up the citizen comment from forward? What are the explanations for the single bid? Is there a way to get another bid? What did the purchasing department do to get other bids? That's a critical question on spending $72 million. I think it's very irresponsible to curtail questioning on single bidding.
Thank you. Supervisor Fox.
My question was answered earlier, so I withdraw.
Supervisor Towns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have just kind of a technical question, and it has to do with the North American mechanical bid on plumbing. And there's a different number on the resolution than there is on the budget summary. And I think probably one of them's a typo, but I'm not sure which one.
Yes, so the HVAC contract, there was a lower bidder, but through the bidder's qualification was disqualified. I don't know if that's where the error is in that resolution.
Looks like there's about just a even $30,000 difference. It's 15 $1,255,000 on the budget summary, but it's 225 on the resolution. And I don't know if it was just a transcription error or, because the total comes out the same, and I assume this one is in Excel, so it probably totaled it correctly.
Okay.
So, but it just,
I got Shiloh looking for me too. You looking at it?
before we vote. And I do want to thank you for all the work, because it is a phenomenal.
Yeah, no, we checked numbers and rechecked numbers, but we did have in the HVAC contracts, I had the one low bid that was, had submitted in the bidder's qualification, you're required to submit a bid of samples of projects that you've done of equal size and scope. And they submitted 2 projects that were of the same scope, but the size was a third of the size we were doing. And when they listed their equipment that they planned to use for the project, they had 1 scissors lift to rent it, and it's gonna take more than that. And when I contacted the references, they said they struggled keeping up, and then, so they were disqualified as not being able to do it. So we went to the second bidder on that one. But just trying to figure out why the numbers don't match, and you said it.
It's 3.22A. And it's 15,225,000 on the resolution, but it's 255,000 in the bid summary, in the budget summary. And I assume maybe it's just a typo.
Okay.
$30,000.
In terms of legal operability, so the number that's actually the most important is that number in the therefore resolved clause, and that the specific contractor is identified. I think the number specific to the contractor can be worked out and made sure it's okay later.
Totals are the same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
we
thank
will
you again
correct
for your
that.
work on this. It is a lot.
Thank you. Supervisor Peer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask a question. I'm not sure, Brent, you can give me a real good answer on it, but I'm just, I'm wondering, if this didn't pass tonight and you were to open this whole bid process for this project up again, can you give me an estimate on how long that would probably take, and also what that would cost us in waiting that amount of time? So that's one thing that I'm kind of weighing in here. And the other thing is, it almost sounds like we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about this particular project, but I'm hearing people that give me the idea maybe they would like to change the rules for the bidding process, especially if there's only one bidder there, according to the qualifications we set up and the restrictions, and only one bidder set in. They would like to change things, I guess, which is fine if that's what the board wants to do, but we're midstream right now. So I guess I go back to Brent. Could you give us a timeline on that, and what it might cost us to wait that long?
Yeah, I can't tell you in the cost. What would concern me is when you look at the state statute, you know, it says that in projects over a certain price is to be let out to bid, and given to the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder. And we did that. So to rebid it, you've already exposed their bid. So now you've just thrown the one bid you do have, and the one that took the time to complete it and submit it and had the resources to complete it, you just threw it out the window. And so I think there's some legalities to rebidding it. You know, we did it when we had lumped together the site and utilities, and it came in $1 million over budget. We were able to separate it and split it out, and then bid that with the bid packet 3 as separate projects. That's a little bit different. But in here, you're saying, we've got the bid, here's what it is. You know, some were under and some were over, but if we rebid that, you just wouldn't be able to do that. And I think you'd have the reverse effect. Pretty soon, the contractors that do bid are gonna say, forget it. You know, if they don't get enough bids, they're not taking it anyway. I'm not gonna waste my time, because they do spend a lot of time and effort preparing and getting all these numbers to submit these bids.
Supervisor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the chair maintaining order and ensuring that all the supervisors who have been patiently waiting have an opportunity to speak, so thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Mawini.
Thank you. More of a statement than anything else. At a recent WCA Finance and Personnel meeting, they were talking about the bidding process. And I was kind of amazed when they said, we're lucky to get a bid. So I think we should be happy that we even get one bid. I mean, we all like to have 4, 5, 6 bids come in, but times are changing and people are busy, and I think we need to look at the package as a whole and just be happy that we've got a bid.
Thank you. Supervisor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're creating a situation in which we're treating the vendors and contractors as the enemy. You know, these people, hopefully, through projects like this, are our partners. Our partners help us keep costs down, help us with the value engineering. I'm fearful that we're creating a situation in which we'll create a hostile environment for bids in the future, and that we'll get less bids rather than more bids. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I did a little back of the napkin kind of calculation here, so I'm not going to swear that these numbers are exactly right, but I checked them twice. The total amount of the J.P. Cullen work amounts to about $29 million. It's $29,590 roughly. If you take the pluses and the minuses in terms of when they were over the budget value that we've got and under the budget value, the total amount that they're over is $1,086,630. In terms of a percentage, that's 3.67%. And so if you factor all of the bids from Cullen are over by 3.67% in an environment in which we've got percentage numbers that are going crazy. That sounds to me as if we have a responsible bidder. We can't force people to bid. I made my living submitting proposals, not for construction, but made my living submitting proposals. I applaud the county for having rules in place and for following those rules. There need to be those rules for us to somehow excuse bad behavior, incomplete behavior, really is going to serve us poorly in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brent, I just had a couple of concerns. So, total cost-wise, now, these are the final bids with the electrical. This will be all the bids on the jail project, or will it be more? Is there more cost to it than this?
There'll be more. We've got down at the bottom of that sheet that I gave you.
Yep.
We listed out, we got other estimated project costs. I mean, they're in that bucket there. You have everything from permits to signage to radios. I mean, there's different things that, isn't finalized, and some of it's proprietary with a specific contractor or vendor that does this stuff. But that's the number when you put it all together is there. And then right below it is the electrical bid. And I put it down here as an under because it hasn't been approved by the committee yet, nor the board. And that bid just came in today at 2. So we haven't evaluated it for its integrity or, any of that stuff. But so we still got to review that. But that'll go into committee the next. So that number's down there. And then we still have built in a $5 million contingency in the project. So you will see that some of these numbers tally up, and it was 98 million, 467, at this point.
Compared to what were you expecting it to be at this point?
At this point, before the electrical, we were $2 million under what the budget value was, which again was estimates, trying to be as accurate as what we think the prices are going to come in at. We were about 2 million. The electricals come in much higher than any of the bids. of all the trade things, electrical came in the highest. And that's put us about, that took up our under by 2 million, that took up that full amount. So, but when you take it all in there, it's, you could still say we're still at 96.6 with a contingency of 3 million versus 5 million. So that's the part that we pull from our contingency when we get to a point where we're higher. But now we've got these other areas that we got to look at pulling it in. And as Supervisor Zorro indicated, we still have time to work with the contractors to see what we can do to value engineer and help pull this in so it's not quite as tight.
Okay, yeah, that was my question, so I have a better idea of what we were expecting this to be and where we're at if we were to pass this tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Supervisor Cullen and then Supervisor Schneider.
This board approved going forward with the jail. I'd just like to make the comment that we decided that in the past, and now some people want to defer this with absolutely no guarantee that it's going to cost less in the future. So we defer this, and the price goes up another 10%. Now what do we do? So that's my comment. We are close to budget. It's not a perfect world. Hopefully some value engineering can get us back on track, but we delay this and the price goes up more, we have the same discussion all over again.
Yeah, and if I could respond too, and this is a little bit to your question, but a little bit to the other supervisor about the cost. I said I couldn't give you the exact cost thing. What I can assure you is the reason that we split the bid packets up is because we needed the footings in first, because we're trying to stay out of the winter costs. Once we get into winter months, that's increasing our winter costs. So when we start delaying any piece of it, you're going to delay, you can't put the roof on if you get the walls. So it's going to put us into the winter months.
Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think this body is trying to make enemies of any contractors. What we're trying to do is represent our constituents and be fiscally responsible by trying to have more than one bidder. So my question for Brent is it Demand Star where they submitted their bids or partially submitted bids?
Yes, they had a couple different options. They could do the Demand Star. Some are better. Some would rather do the electronics instead of coming in person. Some still brought them in person and hand delivered.
Okay, so
Yeah, there was a couple different areas, but most of them came through Demand Stars, I believe, but where it was advertised, yes.
So my question is, can't Demand Star have some way of saying all your documents are submitted? Because everyone does this all the time with my professional licenses. If I forget to attach something or whatever, it bounces back and says, you forgot this one, I don't know. It just seems like that would be pretty basic.
Yep. Shiloh is our purchasing manager, and he's, if anybody's done more with the Demand Star, he's worked that one. So I'd let him answer that one.
Okay.
So to answer your question on that, it does show right there if it's uploaded or not uploaded. And then before they commit, when they actually submit, it says, are you sure you want to submit? These are the documents you're missing. So they're told multiple times before it's just like uploading your documents to anything else. It says, are you sure you want to do this?
Okay.
Yes, you're sure.
Thank you. That's what I wondered. I was hoping that wasn't the reason that bids got.
No, and actually, to answer your other question too, we actually had 57 in person and 40-something on Demand Star. So it was actually more in-person ones than there was electronically, so.
Supervisor Rashkin.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you for doing what you can to run this show, which it could have pay-per-view. I'd like to thank Supervisor Zorro for being so concerned, really, like all of us, about taxpayers' money. And I'd like to thank Supervisor Peer for seeing the distinction between the policy and being midstream. I guess the part of this that I'd like to point out, because a lot of good things have been said, and I don't want to speak just to repeat whatever other people have said. You know, if we're going to a grocery store and we see that the price of eggs goes up, are we going to turn around and walk away? Because that's not the best if it's the only, you know, quick trip in town. I think that's what, you know, we need to accept that those kinds of things change. And if it's the only store that has eggs and milk, then we're probably going to get it. But my question for Brent would be, how many jobs are we looking at? You know, this money is not going to go just, you know, in somebody's pocket. It's going to pay wages. It's going to, and you know, this is not some kind of, you know, Russian company. This is a company right here in Rock County. So we're looking at jobs right here in Rock County, which I think is pretty important. So do you know how many jobs this would affect?
Well, I can certainly give you solid numbers once we get going with the project. But I'll give you an example. The DWRC was 136,000 square feet. That was a $21 million, $22 million project. We had at a given day, every day, we had 100 different trades employees working every day, even through the winter time. So I can certainly get that number. You know, when we get all the contracts in place, I can tell you, I can certainly get you a number of employees that'll be working on the project.
I think that might be helpful because as we're concerned about recession, economy, prices, understanding that we can also either putting people to work right here in Rock County or not putting people to work right here in Rock County is pretty important to me. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Supervisor Zorro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to point out, I actually did the same back of the envelope calculation as Supervisor Wilson. I saw that J.P. Cullen is in fact $1,086,630 over the estimate. And perhaps, you know, if you're looking at the total project on a percentage basis, it's not so bad. But when you compare that number to all the non-J.P. Cullen bidders, they're actually under budget, not including electrical, because electrical just came in this morning. But the non-J.P. Cullen bidders are actually $4,612,382 under budget. In terms of there's rules in place, and we got to follow the rules. That I understand. The one thing that hasn't been was mentioned in committee before this, but not yet here in the boardroom, is on this project overall, we're actually breaking the rules. Ordinance 2.219, Part 2, the Finance Committee actually has the authority to bend the rules a little bit to make exceptions for technicalities and errors, and that's actually being done on 3 of the bids in this project. So, yeah, there's rules in place, but sometimes there's good reasons to make exceptions to those rules. Part of the process, I'd like to point out that the last time we voted on this was on the detention and hardware. We only had one bid, or we had, I'll skip that one. But let's just say that sometimes we want to use our minds and think when it would be appropriate to bend the rules a little bit, kind of like how we bent the rules on this bid. And so I'd like to stress that it's just a concern of mine that, you know, if we're going to have one bidder and they come in below what the estimate is, okay, maybe you approve it. But if you're going to be over, maybe that's something where you give it a little bit of pause and say, okay, there's only one bidder and they're over. Are they over a little bit or a lot? And if they're over a lot, maybe you think about not doing that. Now, Mr. Greenlee, I think you said that it's not possible to amend this resolution. Is that correct? We can't do it?
It's not possible to table a portion of it. You could amend it. I mean, it's a resolution like any other resolution. You can amend the resolution.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not going to make the motion, but I mean, if someone else wanted to, they could. I'd support it. But if I were to amend it, I would kick out the 4 where there's only a single bidder, that we were more than over 50,000. But that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second on the floor. It's all vote.
I'm lost. What are we voting on?
So
To
we're
actually
voting
approve
for
it?
11B1, awarding contracts for the construction of the law enforcement services, the jail. So we're voting on item 11B1.
So we're voting to actually approve it?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just,
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're voting to approve.
Supervisor Pennycook?
I suppose we could say 4, what was 10 million more next time?
18 yes, 6 no, 5 absent. This is just majority.
It's just a majority.
Okay,
Majority.
so that passes.
This item passes.
Item 12.
What did he say?
Is there
Item 12 is adjournment.
we don't need a motion. A motion to adjourn. Motion by Craig, second by Raskin. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.